Okay. Now we got to talk about Matt. I can't even say his name for sure.
Ishaba,
Ishba.
Ishaba, Ishaba,
All
Ishaba,
right.
Aishaba,
First of
Ushaba,
all, we got to give a
Yoshaba.
lot of props to Tom Izzo, okay, his former coach in college at Michigan State University, because he taught him how to take a charge.
Oh yeah,
There's no doubt he taught him how to
no
take
doubt.
that charge. And Booker said after the game, he said, um, you know, he got us a point because Jokic, shoved him with the elbow, a little push, and so they gave him a T. And Booker's like, hey, he gave us a point. Now the Nuggets are pissed. Like they're like, how can a fan? He's just a fan, even though he's the owner. How can he influence the game? Like, how can he try to stop the ball? Like, yada yada yada. Okay, whatever, bro. It
Did
was
you
one of the best moments I've seen in the playoffs in a long time.
and did you hear them ever like the Denver players ever acknowledge that he was the owner?
I did hear Jokic at the end of the press conference say he knew, but he was a fan in that moment. He's at the courtside. He's a fan. He knew who he was. And then
Now,
Mike
did you
Malone,
did you see
Mike
the
Malone said,
incident?
"I do not give a shit." Whenever they
Yeah.
asked him, he's like,
Okay, so he doesn't like they're not acknowledging he's the owner then.
well, they know it, they
I know.
realize it, but they're just treating him as if he is a fan in that moment.
But let's just think about this though for 20 seconds. All right. Ishaba, right, leans over to help the person. Yes, he held the ball, right? But the thing is, he's not looking at Joker, right? He's not looking at him saying, hey, he's coming towards me. He's helping the person that got knocked out, his player, right? Holding the ball, doing what he's supposed to do, which is what? Nothing. Because if he throws the ball, if he does anything else with the ball, then it looks bad on him. He's holding the ball, helping his player up, or just a basketball player up,
I like
right? Like everybody in their dreams want to. And here comes Joker trying to steal the ball. He doesn't see who it is, so he holds the ball. You know what I'm saying?
You're not
And-
supposed to, but he's not the first fan to do it.
Yeah, and you hold and he held the ball, and then when that moment, it was this intense reaction by Joker who just yanked the ball out of his hands and then repeated to push him, and that was the key. Is if he had just taken the ball and done that thing and then flared out and walked away, right? Then it would be a different situation. But when he pushed him, that to me, and yes, he's an owner, but if this was a regular fan and he did that, this would be a different situation. We would be talking about maybe a 2-game, maybe 3-game suspension by a Joker.
Really,
Dude, you cannot go into the stands and do something like that. He went into the space of the fans. And what his argument was, right? What was his argument? I just went into the fans and he held the ball holding up play. But he went into the area, into the space of the fans. And once you do that, you get in trouble. And the league might be okay with it right now because it was the owner, or it could have been a GM and be okay with it because part of the team. But if he wasn't part of the team, he would be looking at multiple game suspensions because, again, this is not malice in the palace situation, but they have tried so hard to make sure that players and fans stay separate. And if Joker wants to say he's just a fan, then he needs to be held accountable in that way.
Yeah, Johnny Bravo's hit it on the head here. He said there was an actress where Josh Giddey tried to get the ball from her hands and she didn't give it up. Like a lot of times these things happen. I think Jokic felt like because he was the owner, I assume he knew that, even though he's only been the owner for a very short time. It was a pretty high profile situation that brought him in to own the team. I feel like Joker kind of was irritated because of who he was. And like you're saying, if Joker had gone in and just treated a regular fan like this, then it might be a multi-game suspension. The fact that it's an owner might.
But and that's why I don't understand his argument. Mm-hmm. If he's trying to make this a fan thing, then he's fucked. Yeah. But if he's part of their team and he tried to obstruct the play, he would be better off that way. But the second he turns this into a fan situation, it's like, dude, you're barking up the wrong tree. It's like Rudy Gobert touching all the mics right now.
Really?
I mean, seriously, like the commissioner's like, I've got to stop this because, again, this is a owner and a player. I can throw fines at them and be okay. But the second Joker's out there, Mike Malone's out there, and everybody else is out there saying he's just a fan, it's making the commissioner not make a decision right away because he's a very methodical commissioner. And he's like, well, if they want him to treat him like a fan, then what do I need to do? Do I need to go there and I need to re-educate them and say, this is listen, this is not a fan situation. We want to go out there in the next interview. I want you to say he's part of the team. He's part of the team. Because if this was a fan situation, I have to suspend him. If this was a team situation, then I can find them and just be like, mind your fucking business, guys.
So what would happen if a fan did an equivalent thing like that to a player? Like we saw that
arrested on the spot,
right.
Like thousands of dollars in fines.
We saw that one fan kind of reach in and kind of touch him. It wasn't really a push, but it looked like he tried to push him, but it was just like he couldn't really get any leverage because he was reaching over people. But he touched him. Ejection. They escorted that fan out, and then all of a sudden you're looking at it and you're like, well, so if that fan touches Joker like this, he's ejected. I agree. Like it's one thing if you're like patting the player on the back whenever he does something good. It's another thing if you're like trying to create, tension. But so if a fan touches Joker, ejection. But if Joker touches a fan or throws an elbow, pushes a fan, he doesn't get an equivalent thing. And so I feel like there's a lot of players.
But again, this goes back to if this was Dennis Rodman diving into the fans, right, and literally knocking somebody out, and they're having to bring him out on a stretcher, which happened, right? I saw that. To me, like, that's one thing because it's part of the game, right? Mm-hmm. It's part inside the organization inside the stadium of the understanding that this could happen. But when a player goes into the fans' space, and we saw this with the Malice from the Palace, bro, and we cannot get back to that spot again. We can't get back to that spot. So how do you make sure we don't get back to that spot? It's the same thing with Draymond Green getting a suspension. It's the same thing with whoever else would get suspensions. That they would just be like, "Why? I didn't deserve that suspension." It doesn't matter. I think was it not Desmond Bain, but DB. He gets a suspension. Brooks, yeah, and it was like, well, it's because of his record beforehand. To me, I mean, Jokic is a great player, but he makes these stupid, irrational decisions sometimes. So we saw one of them last night. And my question is that if this was a fan and they had an opportunity to slap him on the wrist right now and make it a game suspension or make it a $175,000 whatever, like if they could do that right now, they need to do it. Because if this happens again for him and he thinks they can get away with it, like, he's like everybody else, man. He's going to take advantage of the system and take advantage that he can get away with something. Why wouldn't he?
All the players are asking for more protection between the fans and the players. Now, if this doesn't
straight
get
hockey,
addressed, right? If this doesn't get addressed, I hope not. I hope they don't put up some screens or like some glass walls or anything. We don't need that shit in the NBA. But if the players are going into the fans, they have to address it. So let me ask you this. Because I felt like when I woke up, I was like, well, we'll talk about it. It's kind of funny. But I feel like after talking to you about it, it's not over.
It can't be over. I mean, the commissioner might just slap fines on people, but the fine is going to be way deeper because he's going to be looking at the owner and saying, hey, listen, this is your warning. And he's going to look at Joker and say, if anything else happens in your career, like, this is the starting point. You're fucked. Like you're on probation. You're on probation now.
Is there a chance it will impact the series this year?
I mean, anytime that there's something like this happens, yes, absolutely. I mean, not just a little bit, but if Joker goes out, I mean, he scored 56 last night and lost?
Did he really score 56?
Dude, it seemed like it. Kept on watching and being like, holy shit, he's scoring so much, bro.
You look that up, but like with the Suns and the Nuggets series, right?
53. I'm sorry, my bad.
Wow, I didn't honestly, dude. I was listening on mute because like sometimes I just do that.
Yeah.
I should not have. I didn't realize he put up 50.
53. But you had KD and Booker put up 38 each, bro.
There you go. And that was
insane.
It was incredible to watch. It was one of the best games of the playoffs. And it was because of the tempo. It was because of the clean style of play. It was because of all the drama. And now we're tied 2-2, right? Both teams have held home court. So now it's a 3-game series. This is when it gets good. So the team that wins the next game is probably going to go on to win the series. But We don't know. We don't know anything because we saw how the Suns bounced back and won 2 in a row. But for the
Listen,
Suns to win,
the Suns are primed. If you think about it, right?
Mhm.
They have KD, a couple championships. Booker went there last year. DeAndre Ayton went there last year. So, I mean, they've got a team that's seasoned, ready to go. And you have a team like the Nuggets that don't know what it takes to get there. They just don't. They'd have, one player maybe that's been a bench player on a team and that playing for a championship, the championship. So, fuck that, dude. Like, the Suns are ready. And I understand that they're not necessarily a deeper team, but you're going to have to beat the Suns twice, guys. Twice. And I don't know that that's possible right now. The Suns look really fucking good.
We saw Landry Shamet playing pretty good after getting trashed quite a bit. So I'm happy to see that. I've been a fan of his for a little while. I felt like I really wish we got him in the Shea deal also. He was with the Clippers, but it turned out we didn't, it didn't need to happen. But when that happened, I was like, ooh, I wish we got Shamet. So I thought that they were actually pretty close to each other in players.
Yeah.
What's up, Josh? So the crazy thing is to find out Shamet is nowhere near the level Shea is. But I actually thought they were close to each other. So life goes on and you learn how little you actually really know about the game. Let's talk a bit about Jacques Landale. He
got one of my faves.
Pissed before the game and decided that he needed to stand up for DeAndre Ayton. And Ayton been getting trashed.
Bro,
Jacques
that's what
closed the game.
Love it.
Ayton was on the bench. And Jacques was like, man, that's bullshit. Like, he went after the media. And it made us really proud because we hate seeing players like get labels in the media and then narratives develop. And then all of a sudden, even if it has no basis in reality, people keep repeating it. And Jacques was just like, did you see him? Like, he was saying like,
dude, a minute and 31 seconds of just making sure people knew what he felt about, DJ, man. It was just sick, man. And DeAndre Ayton.
He goes after him and he's like, no, he goes after like this idea that like he's in the closing lineup to guard Jokic. And DeAndre is pulling him aside and talking to him about tendencies like he's like a coach, right? Like, you don't see that from somebody who's pissed that they're on the bench. So I'm sitting here watching like Jacques outplay, according to his coach, at least defensively, the starter, right? And then feel like he has to stand up for the starter, right? Which is uncommon because it's like he's earning these minutes and he has to kind of feel bad for the other guy, which is fucked up that he has to. And then on top of that, he's like looking at it, he's like, look at how much the starter is being like a coach and you guys are treating him like he's not, and it's ridiculous. And I'm proud.
You know what's happening, right?
Yeah.
The de-evaluation of a player. How low can this go? And to me, this is why last episode you asked me what player I would love to see that's, underrated and stuff like that on this team. And to me, it's a big body. I always like to see big bodies, and there's very few guys that I would consider as a big body to come on this team that would fit within reason to what we're trying to do here. Within reason. I always felt like DeAndre is that player that we could teach to be that player. Like he would have to develop, but he's still young enough he can do that. So when I thought in my mind, I'm like, man, I would love for us to go get him and bring him to this team because this next year his value is gonna be so low. And a lot of that's due to what Jacques doing right now. Jacques is just playing amazing. And let's give him credit because he is. And because of that, they're going to be looking at this and saying, we can keep 3 of the 4 highest paid players that we have. We've got to get rid of one of them so we can actually be a player in free agency and drafting and moving up or moving down or moving out, like whatever it is, right? They need to be on top of that. So for me, I'm looking at that and saying, if it's DeAndre's value is so low, we could pick him up for pennies, right? We bring him into Oklahoma City, allow him to play, and then when it's re-signing time for these guys, his value is so high. Mm-hmm. Chet's body's ready, Jay Will, J.R. Reed. Now all these guys have another year to develop their bodies. They're ready for big minutes now. And that's why it's important when we're looking at, it's not about addressing a big man in the draft. It's about addressing a big man with somebody else in the league that can handle the workload that we're going to throw at them. And there's very few guys in this league that are available and that are good enough that I would consider yes. And I think that's the thing about it is that it's not necessarily, and we got to say this over and over again, it's not necessarily something that I would always consider, but what Sam Presti has shown that he can pick in the draft guys in that guard, point guard, shooting guard hybrid role, you got to let him keep going with that. Don't stop. Like, keep on picking those guys up all you want. Address the big guys and what we need to help Chet and what we need to help Jay Will. And we'll know what that is more through the season. But you can't deny that having a player of what I would consider a top 10 big man in the league wouldn't help you.